Whenever we discuss systems of governance, one of the most appreciated systems in the world is democracy. Democracy simply means rule by the people. As Abraham Lincoln famously defined it, democracy is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. In theory, it sounds idle. Citizens elect their leaders, grant them power, and expect them to work for public welfare. But in practice, many challenges arise. A very common observation in Indian politics is this. Before elections, leaders follow the people. After elections, people follow the leaders. Once elections are over and representatives are chosen, voters often feel that accountability weakens. Many leaders, after winning, hardly remain visible to the public for the next 5 years. Now this concern is not new, but it recently came back into discussion after Rajya Sabha MP Raghav Chadha raised an important issue in the Indian Parliament. He argued that if voters have the right to elect, they should also have the right to recall. His reasoning was straightforward. If citizens can hire leaders through elections, they should also have the power to fire them if those leaders fail to perform. The statement immediately sparked debate. His speech went viral. Reactions poured in. And once again, the concept of the right to recall entered public conversation. Now the first question naturally becomes, what exactly is the right to recall? The right to recall is a democratic mechanism that allows voters to remove an elected representative before the completion of their term. Suppose citizens elect an MP or MLA for 5 years. If during that tenure, voters become dissatisfied with the representative's performance, they can initiate a formal process to remove that individual through voting. Importantly, not everyone participates. Only the voters of the same constituency that elected the representative are involved. Legal rules can define thresholds. For example, a minimum percentage of voters must support initiating recall, and final removal may require majority approval. In simple terms, voters receive two powers: power to elect and power to remove. Now, some may wonder, is this idea new to India? Interestingly, if we look at India's historical traditions, the spirit of such accountability can be traced back to the Vedic period. During that time, the concept of Raj Dharma emphasized that rulers had duties toward their subjects. If a ruler failed to uphold those duties, people were morally justified in replacing them. While this was not a structured recall system, the underlying principle of accountability existed. Moving to modern history, one of the earliest supporters of recall in India was M.N. Roy in 1944. He advocated decentralized governance and argued that if performance justifies election, it should also justify removal. The idea was also discussed in the Constituent Assembly of India, but B.R. Ambedkar opposed it. Consequently, no recall provision was included in the constitution. Later, leaders like Jai Prakash Narayan also supported the concept, especially in the context of democratic reforms. Over time, legislative attempts were made. Proposals were introduced, including constitutional amendment suggestions and private member bills, but none were enacted into law. But why does this idea repeatedly return to debate? Because it touches a very fundamental democratic concern. What happens if voters elect the wrong person? Must citizens wait for the full 5-year term even if performance is unsatisfactory? Supporters of the right to recall present several arguments. They say recall would strengthen accountability and transparency. Representatives would remain more responsive to voters, knowing removal is possible. Governance quality may improve, citizen empowerment would increase, and false promises could carry consequences. However, critics highlight serious concerns. Recall could be misused as a political weapon, they say. Frequent attempts might create instability. Elections demand time, administrative effort, and public expenditure. Constant removal threats could discourage long-term policy decisions. Stability, which fixed tenures provide, may also weaken. Therefore, safeguards are important and are often suggested. For instance, recall allowed only after a cooling off period, say 18 months. Clearly defined grounds like corruption or misconduct, minimum voter support thresholds, majority approval requirements. Now, another important question arises. Does India currently have any recall system? At the national and state legislative levels, the answer is no. There is no right to recall for members of parliament or state legislatures. Introducing such a system would require constitutional amendments and changes to the Representation of the People Act 1951. At present, removal of MPs and MLAs is possible only through specific mechanisms. Disqualification can occur for reasons such as holding office of profit, unsound mind, insolvency, or invalid citizenship. Defection is addressed through the anti-defection law. Criminal convictions may also trigger disqualification, but none of these involve direct voter-initiated recall. That said, limited recall type provisions exist in local governance. Some states, including Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and Bihar, allow recall of certain local body representatives under defined conditions. Globally, recall mechanisms operate in countries like Switzerland, Canada, and parts of the United States of America. A well-known example is the 2003 recall election in California, where Governor Gray Davis was removed and replaced by Arnold Schwarzenegger. This shows that recall is not merely theoretical, it functions in some democracies. Yet, applying it to a country as large and diverse as India involves complex practical considerations. Ultimately, the right to recall represents a tension within democracy itself, balancing accountability with stability. While the idea appeals strongly to democratic ideals, its implementation depends on institutional capacity, civic awareness, and political maturity. And that is precisely why the debate continues.